What's up everybody, Patrick from wpbuilderhelper, and in today's video we're going to deep dive in Divi, and I am going to be talking about the pros, the cons, everything that's good, that's bad. I've got examples, I've got everything to show you to take and go over what I think is right and what's wrong with Divi as a whole. And I'm hoping that the company will take and they'll reach out and maybe, say, hey, we're working on this or whatever the case is. I know that I have that on some of my channel, but some developers on the channel will reach out and actually talk about their product. But hopefully we can talk about this in a constructive way where it's not negative. But today we're reviewing it, so stay tuned if you wanted to know more about Divi. And let's get started. Alright, so we're back. So this, like I said, is going to be a deep dive in Divi. I know that a lot of people on this channel are for alternative builders, but I do want to take and note that Divi and Elementor, I think at the time of this recording, are two of the bigger builders that are out there. I think maybe Beaver Builder, maybe another one that's pretty huge. But I think that those builders are two of the biggest builders on the planet. But today we're not talking Elementor, today we are talking Divi. So what we're talking about is, obviously Elegant Themes came out with Divi a long time ago. Divi's been around for years now, it seems like. It seems like it's just been around. The page builder market as a whole is not very old in essence. It's been around for a long time. If you're really going back to like something like Visual Composer or something like that, but in general it has not been around for that long. It's only been around for a short period of time. And so if we take and we look here, you can see that Divi was one of the first ones to come out with this whole page builder experience, and they've got all of this other stuff that's included in their theme and it's a theme and it's a page builder, which is a bit weird. But it is what it is. It's rolled into one. It was one of the few that rolled in all of the functions into a theme and a page builder, because you don't see that with very many. I think the only one I can think of off the top of my head that's doing that today is kind of like Live Canvas, but it's not a theme and a page builder. It uses a bootstrap and then it combines it with something else. But once again, we're not comparing from different builders, we're comparing overall. So I've got 9 categories that I'm going to go over, and these 9 categories you can find basically come from my own blog where I go over, here obviously this is not Divi because I haven't done one for Divi yet, but I go over and I talk about all the differences between builders and what you can find. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, you're going to find that I have a category section, and this is where you basically, I'll rate something from like 1 to 5. In this one, I'm just going to talk about, I'm not going to do the rating. I'll leave that for another one when I go back and I actually do the ratings for this. But I'm going to talk about each and everything. I'm going to talk about updates, first impressions, support, pricing, WooCommerce, speed, documentation, community, and library. And I'm going to give you my overall feedback on all of those different things. So I'm hoping to cover all of this in a short period of time and not waste your time. So let's dive into Divi and let's talk about some of the things I like about it and some of the things I don't like about it and what we can do about it. So I've got a demo site up here, and I'm going to just jump in right from the beginning and start talking about it. So feature-wise, Divi has always been one of the builders that's been out there quite some time, and they've done a decent job with it. I think Divi, so we'll call this test page, and I'm going to have to move this down to the bottom, so I apologize, so I can see the publish. So, Divi's been around for quite some time, but the thing about it is that it's built up a reputation. It's built up a reputation around bloat. It's built up a reputation around many, many different things. And there's a lot of good things that Divi does. So for instance, they have an extensive library. They have one of the libraries that I think is the largest out of any builder that's out there currently. It's got, the layout packs in this is just absolutely extravagant. They've got a number of layout packs to where if you bought Divi today, you might not even need to necessarily go and purchase anything out of the box. And all of these are custom things that they do. Let's take this hosting layout. Let's just import like a like a landing page or a home page. Let's import just the home page. Let's use this layout. So we're going to import the home page, and what it's doing now is it's basically dragging all of that media over, so it copies it all over, which I really like. And it takes it apart, but it lets you look at it. So Divi works in the way that many page builders work. Basically, essentially, it's got a set of widgets, and those widgets you can use on your page. And there's obviously things like this where you have dividers. There's headers and footers. There's WooCommerce. There's all of that that's baked into Divi. But essentially, all you have to do is click on one of these items, and you can kind of go in here and you can start customizing it by clicking on it and seeing what the design is. Like if you want to see the image or you want to see the icon or anything like that. So in these, I think that these are icons because it's a blurb setting. Yeah, so you can see here's the icon. And if you go in here, you can start typing. So you could change this to say, I want this text to be whatever. So it works exactly like any other builder that's out there. But the point is that it's got a very drag and drop interface. Now, Divi a long time ago used to have what's called a backend builder. And if we take and we click right here, you'll see that you still have access to this. A long time ago, this is how you did things with Divi. When I first bought into Divi, this is how we were doing things. We were developing on the back end and then going to the front end and then clicking view and seeing what it looked like. That's unfortunately how you had to do it back in the day. But then they came out with the live preview because there was more of a stress to have a live preview. And so they leave it there just so that you can do it for ease of use and reference. But essentially, it's here so that you can have multiple ways of doing the whole Divi method. Rather than there just being one way, you can do it however you want to do it. If you want to code in the back end more than the front end, go to that. And they also allow you to customize the experience, which I really like. You can literally go in here and you can turn off builder animations. You can turn off the opacity. You can turn off close toggles, placeholder. I mean, there's just so much you can turn off and on with this. And you can even customize the toolbar to the point where you can go in and you can add things and take things away. Like maybe I don't know why you'd want to take away mobile, but you could go in and you could take away mobile and you could drop it. So then you can see mobile is no longer in there. Not sure why you'd want to do that. Seems like that's just, stupid. Maybe you do that for a client, I don't know, so that they don't screw up anything on mobile. Because I know mobile, most clients don't understand. But as you can see, Divi's got most of the major things. So let's start off with category 1, and I'll make sure to take and drop something down below so we can talk about it. And that's features. Divi comes with all the features that you could think of right out of the box. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's missing from Divi from my perspective is if we went to the Divi website, the thing that I think's missing is this, the Bloom and Monarch, which are additional plugins which you add, which basically what they are is they're social media plugins where you can have social media attached to it, like attached to your pages. And Bloom, which is an email plugin, which is basically like a pop-up plugin, but it really only works for email. It really is an outdated plugin, and they should just take and throw that away. But one of the things that's always bothered me about Divi is you're seeing with Elementor and Brizy a lot more of a justification for pop-ups and more of a media funnel type deal, where you're dragging everything into a funnel so that it fits those marketers and it fits things like that. You don't see that with Divi so much. It's interesting that they don't take a stand on that, but you don't see a lot of funnel. You don't see a lot of now. I lie. I do think somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, I think Divi has A/B testing. I think I remember that Divi has A/B testing somewhere. I don't remember where though. But I think it does have some kind of A/B testing. So that may be me speaking out of place. But the point being is that Divi's got a lot of things that it does well, a lot of things that you would see with other builders that are out there. There's a lot of great things about Divi. There's a ton. The community's great, all of that, but we're going to dive into that. But feature-wise, I think that it's all right. If I were to rate it today, I think it's fallen behind when you take and you look at all the other builders on the market. And I say that for a couple of different reasons. And one of those reasons being that the fact that Divi is it's become very, very hungry. It's a very, very hungry builder. It's a very, very hard builder to use on most websites. Not because the websites as a whole can't handle them, but because there's just a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So let's look real quick. I just want to see if Divi actually has the A/B testing. I'm pretty sure they do. Yes, so you can perform a split test. Although this is saying on the Bloom plugin. So can you not do that on the Builder plugin? How to use Divi leads? Okay. Split testing, yes. So you can do some split testing. So that's kind of cool, and I'd like to see other builders have that. That's something that you don't see with a lot of other builders, where you can kind of split test the difference between a button A and a button V, button A and button B, and figure out which button gets better response. So you can do these. Yeah. So there we go. It's in the builder settings. You can enable split testing, which I think is cool. That's something that's pretty unique with Divi. It's something that's not that I think is needed in a lot of other builders, just because if you're trying to do some marketing stuff, that can be very, very useful to you. So in terms of features, do they have everything? Do they have pop-ups? Well, kind of. If you want to use another plugin, and they kind of have social sharing if you want to use another plugin. But in all honesty, shouldn't it just be built into the front end? Shouldn't I be able to take and go here and just pick a social sharing, just a new section, start a regular section? And shouldn't there be something in here where I go into here and I just go to social? We don't have, we have a social media follow. Why can't I share? Why isn't that built into Divi? It just seems rather weird. I mean, it's built into almost every other builder on the planet, and that's one thing that Divi just seems to... They have so much in here that you can do, but yet there's just not a lot of stuff when it comes to marketing wise, other than that A/B split testing. As a matter of fact, Divi even has a contact form, which, as I remember correctly, a lot of the builders, well, I guess Elementor's got a contact form and so does Brizzy, but some of the other builders do not have contact forms. So it's a little bit confusing to try and figure out why they have some features but not the others. So feature wise, I'd say pretty good. I would probably give them a 4 out of 5 if I was going on features. I think they have a lot. They still don't have a pop-up builder, which I think is essential now, especially with GDPR. You need pop-ups to basically say, hey, customers, we're using your data, and this is how we're using it. We're not going to sell it to anyone. So now we're going to move on, and the next part is price. So we're going to dive into price, and Divi's pricing has always been one of the better pricing plans that I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, usually when I'm talking to website builders, we talk a lot about price and what's fair and what's not fair. And a lot of people say that you cannot do lifetime access and make money. They always say it. They say there's too much involved with development and everything else. Well, Divi's been around since the dawn of man, and they've had lifetime access since the very beginning. And I think that has helped them grow to the point that they're at. I don't know how many installs Divi has. I'm sure Divi knows how many installs they have, but they don't really tell you, and so they don't want to compare you to Elementor or whatever. We only know that Elementor is the biggest page builder on the market because it's on the WordPress directory, and so that tells us 5 million installs. But I would venture to say that Divi's got to have quite a few installs on their back end. It's got to be over 1 million. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's less than that, but it's got to be over 1 million. They've been alive for so long that there's just so much that you could do. So in terms of pricing, this pricing is very, very much stable. They do a decent amount of updates. They do a decent amount of sales. They do a decent amount of everything. And even their yearly access is unlimited websites, which is awesome. They give you a risk-free guarantee. You give access to all of their packs. You get access to everything. They have very, very simple pricing. You have yearly or you have lifetime. You can pick and choose. But I think that Divi kind of points out to me, Elegant Themes are pointing out why Divi has worked the way it has. And the reason why it's worked the way it has is because the lifetime access is working. This company is not going out of business, and they've been in business a long time. So for me, when people sit there and say, oh, well, you can't do lifetime pricing, it won't work. It's like, yeah, you can. This is the reason why you can do lifetime pricing. If they can do it, and they've been doing it for the last 3 years, and they have not gone out of business, don't tell me that another little small mom and pop type page builder can't do it and succeed. You can do it. It's harder, but you can do it. People do not use up as many resources as they think. So don't tell me that, because as a matter of fact, if we want to argue that, I'll get into a little argument here. But in terms of pricing, Elementor has a much, much higher pricing. Their pricing is $200 a year for unlimited all of this. And right now their support sucks. So to me, I'd much rather this. And by the way, I've always had great support with Divi. I've never had any problems. They respond to me very well. We're going to get into the support later, but just a preview, their support's actually pretty decent. I've never had a problem with it. So, to me, this pricing is one of the better prices of all of the page builders that are out there, because it's stable, it's constant, people know what it is. You're not doing any shady marketing. Oh yeah, we're going to end it tomorrow, or here's X amount of licenses left. It's been $249 for the past 3 years, I believe. It might have gone up a little bit, but it's been $249 as long as I can remember. And I think it's a good price. And if they went up just recently or whatever, I wouldn't even, fault them for that. I think that they win on pricing in terms of all the other page builders, because their pricing has been very, very stable. And I love the fact that they do lifetime premium support and unlimited websites. Basically, it makes it to where all the people who can't afford a normal builder, they can afford this one, because it's got everything that they need in terms of building. So if you're looking to build lots of different websites, this may be the builder for you in terms of that, just in terms of that. But we're going to get into some more details. Integrations. So when we're talking integrations, we need to talk about the whole entire thing. And Divi has some integrations built in. So obviously it can use WooCommerce. Obviously, I think, can it use Gutenberg? Is there a Gutenberg? No, there's not a Gutenberg, but is there a WordPress? No. Interesting. So this is interesting. I've never ran into this, so forgive me for taking and looking for this, but I didn't know if they had Gutenberg integration. And I think that's kind of weird. Like, you don't have Gutenberg integration in this. I know you have WooCommerce integration because you've got shops and pricing tables and things like that, but there's no Gutenberg integration. That's weird. That's really weird. And if you're asking why, it's because even Elementor knows, even Brizzy and Oxygen, they all have Gutenberg integration of some sort. And Divi doesn't? Is that right? That can't be right. I must be wrong. So, So integration for me comes in two parts. Let's talk about integration, because there's two parts with integration. There's the number of people developing plugins for it, and there's the back-end integration with working with WordPress. Now, Divi works with WordPress just fine, but in terms of everything else, it doesn't play. So let's see, how to build reusable image layout blocks, adding Divi to Gutenberg posts. How to add Divi built highlighted quotes to your Gutenberg post. How to create usable layouts for Gutenberg post. So it's got some Gutenberg integration apparently. So, oh, it's got built-in Gutenberg. Okay, so they did it the opposite way. See, Elementor made it to where it imports Gutenberg. Divi did it to where when you go into Gutenberg, it actually has Gutenberg blocks. What? Save and exit. Let's go to another page. It's actually got Gutenberg blocks. So let's edit this page and let's see. Let's go in here. And we don't want to use the Divi builder. We want to use the Gutenberg builder. Go into blocks. Embeds. No. Okay, am I not? So obviously there's a way. I'm not going to dive into it too much. There's a way that you can get some Divi blocks on here. I'm not exactly sure how you get their reusable blocks, and maybe it's just a matter of saving, because it says how to create a reusable Divi layout block, which obviously allows you to take a block and save it as a Divi layout. Oh, so does it add Divi layouts? Add an inline. Once we have the Divi block anywhere you want in the post content, add hover to the email option. Interesting. So that's weird. So, oh, Divi layout, there it is. So you could take and build a new layout and import it into Gutenberg. That's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. Okay, I'm taking back the integration part. I said that they weren't integrated in a lot. In terms of the plugins, let's talk about that. The plugins, Divi has plugins throughout the wazoo. If you just Google Divi plugins, there's hundreds of plugins. There's plugins from everything. There's plugins from other creators. There's plugins for speed. There's plugins for optimizations. There's plugins for Gutenberg. There's plugins for everything you can think of. Divi has the plugins down pat. As a matter of fact, where some other builders are probably lacking because they're newer and because they don't have that API, Divi has been out on the market so long that their API is just constant and they have the plugins. So I lie. In terms of integration, I would still say a 4, only because there's got to be a way. Let's try and edit. So you can integrate some of this. So I think that you can see this pulls this from Gutenberg. When you bring this in, it's like pulling the Gutenberg post, but it doesn't let you like import it, to my knowledge. And I'm sure there's a way. There's got to be some dynamic something that you go into, because I know they've got dynamic headers and footers and things like that. So there's got to be a way that you can do it. So maybe I'm just wrong with that. Maybe they actually do have more dynamic stuff than what I actually know, because it has been a while since I played with it, and that's probably laziness on my part, less than Divi's part, because obviously they know what they're doing. But yes, I believe, yeah. So right here is dynamic, where you can pull in site content and all of that. So, okay, I give it some credit. If you can pull in this kind of stuff, then I feel pretty good that you're pretty well off. Their integration is pretty good. So for me, their integration is probably like a 5, because they have so many plugins, they have so much stuff. I give their integration a fair judgment. We go to community. Divi has one of the bigger communities that are out there when you're taking and you're looking at Facebook or you're looking at any of these other communities. There's whole entire communities that are out there that literally will help you out if you don't know how to do anything. Like, you can write a post and there's thousands upon thousands of people in the community. And unlike some other communities, I find that Divi's communities tend to be a lot more fair, and they tend to be a lot more just, and they'll point you in the right direction. If you can venture to say that if you don't know the answer to something, you can go out on one of these community forums and you can find out the answer pretty quickly. So for me, I think their community is a 5.2. The only place that I would give them a mark is if you mention another builder, they typically shut down the conversation immediately. Like they don't want to hear about Elementor, they don't want to hear about Oxygen. They do not talk about those other builders. They only talk about Divi, which is fine. I can understand that, and I don't think that that's too bad. I think it's fair, and I think it is what it is. The next part that we're going to dive into is first impressions. So first impressions, if I had to take and give Divi a first impression, it's mixed. And it's mixed for several different reasons. So let's go look at the front end of this. Let's look at the front end of this website, and I'll show you why. So the front end of this website is just this, right? So if we copy this, I'm going to go into my local, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go in, and I'm going to do a speed test. I'll show you why it's mixed. Well, this probably should be speed, so I'll change that to speed. So part of the reason why this bothers me is because when you dive into Divi, you realize how bloated it is. It's heavily bloated. And if you're aware of what's going on with Elementor right now, you know that Elementor is in a panic right now. It's a dumpster fire if you upgraded to 3.0. Some people will say, nothing happened to me. But there's a large majority that, yeah, stuff happened to us. It sucks. Your whole entire website could go down or anything. You send support a message, it takes them 4 days. To my knowledge, Divi is working at this, but look at this. This is a blank page. Blank page. Look at this page. There's no images on it. There's only text. There's a header. There's a footer. There's some icons. That's it. Look at this load time. 2.138 seconds with a page speed of almost a megabyte. That is a huge problem, guys. Huge problem. Red flags should be going off in your head, because the problem is that when you take and you look at Divi and you start comparing what pages look like, you quickly realize that their pages are bloated. Let's go to the test page. Let's look at the test page and see what the test page is. Let me see how I can copy the test page. There's a way to copy it. Let's do this. Let's type in test. Let's start test. Let's see. And some people will say this probably isn't right, but the whole point is to get a baseline. That's all this is, because this is not on a shared server. It's on my local host. So obviously it's not going to be optimized. Obviously there's all of that. But it doesn't matter. You're getting a good representation of the page speed. You're getting a good representation of the page size. You're getting a good representation of all of that. Look at this. So this is the page that we just built. 5.4 seconds of load time. That's not wrong. 1.9 megabytes and 49 requests. Holy mother. That's huge. That's gigantic. So if we're looking here and we're looking at speed, Divi's just bloated. I mean, it is what it is. It's just a bloated builder. There's no way to put it down. I mean, if I had to give Divi a speed rating, it's a 1. Because everyone knows, and I think this is where Divi's going to get hurt, and this is where Elementor is kind of seeing that coming down the road, and Divi hasn't seen it yet. So Divi knows that Google is going to take and penalize websites next year. Now, I've heard it's not going to be a big ranking factor when it comes to that. But let me tell you something. If you're ranking with times like this, and you don't even have ads on this, what would you do if you ran ads on this? You can't run this on a production website. I can't have the load time as 5.4 seconds. And yes, the images aren't optimized, and I don't have a caching plugin, and I don't have any of that, and it's on a local server, so that plays a part. It doesn't matter. The page size and the load time are terrible. Terrible. This page size correlates to this load time. This is terrible. I mean, it's garbage. Divi needs to go back at some point and start looking at these and going, how can we take and optimize this? And you're kind of seeing, and this is where I got to give some other builders some credit. Like with Brizzy and all of that, they just did a recent interview, or they did a thing when they were talking about WooCommerce, and the actual head of Brizzy came out and physically said, hey, we know we got a problem. We know we have to reduce the speed, and so they're doing some optimizations this year, and I think Divi is also. But they're going to even be working on image optimizations, which may be some of the biggest complaints with Divi is their image optimization, because I think that that's where a lot of this is coming from, is image optimizations. But here's the problem with that. There's two parts to that, right? So you've got your images and you've also got your code. The problem that a lot of these page builders suffer with is the coding part, because it's divs within divs within divs. As a matter of fact, if we take and we look through this and you look at the page source itself, or no, not page source. If we inspect it, let's do that. Let's delete the page source. You can see that, like clicking on something like a heading. So we'll go to a heading. So here's a heading. You have just divs within divs within divs within divs within divs. And all of this is just crazy because you're literally loading a bunch of crap. And they're going to have to go in and clean this up, and I think it's going to break a lot of people's websites. I think it's going to work a lot. I mean, look, Elegant Themes has done an excellent job of making sure their product is awesome. And if they come out with, let's say, Divi 5.0, and it's got optimizations, and the optimizations are awesome, or Divi 4.5, whichever number they're on, I think they're on 4 right now, then to me, the optimizations, they can fix this issue. But it's going to be a long road, because Divi is huge. It's gigantic. They just have a lot of code to go through. And for me, their speed right now, it's a 1. I'm sorry. There's no other way to say it. If you give me this kind of stuff in a page size like this, I'm ignoring the performance and the requests. I'm just looking at this and this. It's a 1 for me. I just can't take that seriously. That's really, really bad. It's really, really bad from every standpoint. If you're just building a regular website, you do not want your website this slow. The only thing I could think of is if you got on a really, really super fast host, and then it would bring this up a little bit, and then you could maybe reduce the images or optimize them a little bit better, more than they did. But I mean, once again, speed sucks. So let's go back to where we were before, and I'm trying to remember because I jumped to speed. First impressions. So first impression for me, when you dive into the builder itself, to me, it's become so clustered. Now, they've done a great job of optimizing it, but I literally one time had built something for a client, and I can tell you the client got so confused by this builder. He was like, this is really a pain in the butt, because there's so many different tabs. There's so much that you have to go through. Now, of course, you've got this filter option here. So if you wanted borders, you can go to borders and it brings you right to it. That's a use of function feature, but it's also because this has become so cluttered that you have to have that. Otherwise, you'd spend hours going through something. But overall, I think the first impression is fairly easy. If you want to go in and change text, you click on it and you type in, oh yeah, the services is spelled wrong or whatever, and boom, there's your text. You've got the text, you've got the ability to go in here and do what you need to do. So I give it some credit. I don't think that it's all bad, and I don't think it's fair to go in and blame Divi for everything that's going wrong with everything. I think that this works. It does what it needs to do. Spelled that wrong. It does what it needs to do, but it's like, is it the best experience out there? No. Compared to other builders that are out there, when you compare this to Brizy, you're like, wow, how can Brizy be so light and this be so heavy? And this is exactly what it feels like. It's heavy because they choose to make it heavy. The experience is okay. It's not bad. When someone knows all of this, they know it. They can go through this. I remember when I was creating websites for this and I knew where everything was at. You go through it and you can hit it one by one, like bam, 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 done. And you can knock out a page within minutes. Not minutes, I should say, because it'll take you longer than that to choose the media and everything and choose the layout. But you can knock out pages relatively fast without any issue and go in and change the height and the width and everything else and not have any kind of issue with images or anything like that. So there's some good things that Divi does. it's just, to me, it's like, yeah, okay. So I like the fact that you can go in and you can drag things. I like the fact that you can go in and you can customize everything. It still doesn't change the fact that when we're talking about what's going on with Divi, you're like, okay, well, why is something the way it is? When you're looking at just the basics of it, why is it the way it is? And for Divi, I think a lot of this is due to the fact that they were just trying to make a page builder, and it was the best page builder that they could make at the time. And since then, it hasn't really been upgraded. It's been upgraded. They've added in these search functionalities that are baked into here, and they've added more stuff in that you can change in here. So if you want to change that, they add in all these cutesy little features. If you want to make it more like Elementor, there's the Elementor feature. If you want to do split test, there's all these different things that you have that's in here. But if you don't know where it's at from a client perspective, man, you can get lost in here really quick. And I think that that's something that Elementor forgot about along the way. They stopped worrying about the clients. They stopped worrying about the web developers and started kind of focusing on making it like a Wix Squarespace clone, where they were fighting against Wix and Squarespace. And it's, it is what it is. I'm not going to complain too much about it, but I definitely don't think it's my favorite. First impression, I'd give it a 3 at max. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. So the next one that we jump into is WooCommerce. Now, to be quite honest with you, I don't know all of their WooCommerce. So I would be lying to say that I do, but obviously I like their documentation, which, by the way, we won't go over it. I won't spend a lot of stuff, but you do have some WooCommerce modules in here. So have a live demo of this product page. So you do have WooCommerce, and you've got it to where you can literally drop in whatever you want. So it works essentially like Oxygen, essentially like a lot of other builders that are out there. Yeah, you see, it's got all the Woo stuff. So you have to have Woo installed. That's why, and I'm not going to waste time and go through it. But essentially, it's got everything you need. So on WooCommerce, I give them a 5 because I think it's fair. They've included everything in it, and I think for people who are trying to do like a shopping page, it's fine. The speed would still frustrate me, but it's fine, with WooCommerce in terms of that. Documentation. We've been talking about documentation this whole time. I think that their documentation is great. You saw me just jump into it, and I've gone to exactly where I need to. Even without the community, you can jump into something, and their documentation is huge. You can literally go through and you can pick the Divi builder, and if you want to know SEO or whatever, it'll bring up the SEO options, like what is SEO, a beginner's guide. They've got a lot of documentation, and they probably have the most documentation of someone else. I didn't even know they have a developers. Wow, that's interesting. So they're telling you how to create an extension. That's cool. They have a developers so that you can actually go and look at the developers portion of it. That's pretty neat. So library wise, so let's go back to our feature and let's look at their library. So Divi's library is gigantic, as I remember. Their library is pretty huge. Let's go to add a regular section. Let's go here. Or how do you get to their library? Let's trash this page. And let's go into their library. I think it's here. Wait, where is it? How do you get to their library? I'm so stupid. I haven't used this in forever. And I know that they have a library section. I tell you what, let's exit it. Discard. So we'll discard. We'll go back. Start up a new page. And we'll call this contact page, and we'll use the Divi builder. because I know that this comes up. So build from scratch, clone an existing. So let's choose browse layouts. And I know there's a way to get this, load from a library. But here's their library. They have this many packs that you can kind of go into. And it's pretty useful. I mean, with so many websites, look at how many websites they have. You can literally go through this library forever. They have one of the biggest libraries that I've ever seen. My biggest problem a while ago was not their library with this. It was actually their library with their theme builder itself. Let's see if they allow you to do it. So back in the day, if you wanted to build a global header, and I just screwed up. So we want to use a pre-made layout. See, and yeah, that's what I thought. Yep. Let's go back. Discard. Let's delete. Add from library. Yep. So for some reason, they do not have headers and footers on their library. You can import them, and that's beautiful because they have the Divi library. When you go into it, you can actually import. This is one of the few import and export that you can have. Most builders don't have this, and Divi's always had this. I give them points in the feature category just for having that. As a matter of fact, the more I go over Divi, the more I see why a lot of people like it. It's got more features and it's more robust than a lot of these other builders. They also have import and export, which a lot of these companies are basically holding hostage with different things. Like, you can't import and export. You can import, a lie. You can import the layout and export the layout inside of the layout itself, but you can't like share layouts with other builders. It's kind of hard. Oxygen does it with like a code that they give you that you get that I don't like, where the your page has to be live. This, if you wanted to export something, you could literally export the builder layout, and then it'll export it and it turns it into like a JSON file. Yeah, right here. And then you can take and you can just bring that over to somebody else's stuff, which then means you can build your own layouts and share them with people. You're not seeing a lot of that with other builders. So I give them some props for that. Their library is actually very, very impressive. My only concern with their library is headers and footers. I think they need to integrate headers and footers into their library, because obviously right now if you import, yes, you can take and you can get some headers and footers. And if we go to their blog, I believe their blog has a ton of where is their blog? Where is it? Recent post. Their blog has a ton. So yeah, so here's some headers and footers. Here's like a header and footer pack that they just put out. I don't want packs. I want it included in the builder. And I get why you don't want to do it, but I don't want to download this, because then I have to come to your website, download it. Yeah, that's great, but I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. And so to me, that's why I don't like this. They use this as almost like it's almost like a lead gen type thing, where you come here, you throw in your email and whatever, and boom, you've got your download. I don't like that. I mean, if I want to download it, why isn't it just included in the builder itself? And it's just not. And so to me, they lose points for that, but I still think that their library is strong enough where I can't even argue. They got 180 templates that you could use. That is a lot of templates. There is no other builder that has that many templates. So for me, it's a 5, even though they don't have headers and footers. I think they need to include headers and footers. I think Divi needs to do that, but they have a 5. Support is the last thing, and I can't talk about support enough. I think it's pretty important, because I think you're seeing, this is one place you're seeing kind of people like Elementor and others fall behind, is sometimes you're going to get bad support. Not every time, but sometimes you're going to get bad support. This is one place that I've had some pretty good success with Divi. Divi has some great technical support. Once you log in, you can literally, they say chat with us, but I don't think that I guess you could chat here. So you could send them a message and it says usually responds in a couple of minutes. they've got support that's all over the place, and their support is pretty good. I haven't had an issue with them at all. So I like Divi's support. I haven't had a problem with that. I know other people probably have, but when I've asked them for a question or I needed help with something, they were there. So overall, is Divi bad? No, it's not the worst thing that you could ever use in the world. I just think that, one of the places where Divi is really lacking is here. I think they're lacking in some of the features. And I think if they continue to think that they're the biggest page builder that's out there, obviously we've seen that Elementor kind of do this steady rise. And if we actually go into, let's go into the WordPress plugin. Let's type in WordPress plugins. You'll see that obviously Divi is not in here because it never has been in here. But Elementor is at 5 million installs. Now, it's got a lot of feedback. It's got a lot of everything. And once again, I'm not trying to compare the two, but in some ways I am. And look at all these ones. This is what Divi needs to be careful of. If you're going to take and you're going to update your page builder and you're going to get it to the point where you can kind of do whatever it is you need to do to make the web developers happy and all of that, you're going to get into a tug of war because developers want something different than clients. So that's kind of what's happening here is that Divi's getting in a fight right now. They're getting into a fight with all these different people because what is basically happening is they're literally, I say Divi, I'm sorry, Elementor is getting into a fight right now because they've updated their plugin and they've gone in and they've updated the code to make it leaner and cleaner because developers have always been saying, hey, this is a problem. And I think that this is one place that Divi's not looking at. And I know that they're trying to look at it, but they're not trying hard enough. Another thing that bothers me, I'm going to mention this because it needs to be mentioned. We had a sneak peek. I want you to look at this sneak peek. And I said I was going to mention this because it deserves to be mentioned. They talked about the Divi Builder theme on May 17th, 2018. Do you see this date? May 17th, 2018. I'll give someone bonus points if they know how long it took them to come out with this. Give you some seconds. Go ahead. Take your guesses down below. Go ahead and put them in the comments. Did you think it took 3 months to come out with it? Did it come 2 months? 1 month? Did it come a week? How long did it take to come out with this sneak peek? Guess what? I'm going to break it to you. You ready? This is when they came out with it. The theme builder arrived in October 2019. So, like a year and a couple of months? Are you serious? Why put out sneak peeks? And to be quite honest with you, I haven't seen Nathan B. Weller. I don't even know if he's part of the team anymore or not. He may be part of the team. He may not be part of the team. I don't know. I haven't seen any sneak peeks with him. Mostly I've seen with their founder, which when he comes out with stuff, I think he's been fair. I mean, I don't think he's bad. I'd definitely like to see him talk about it more than Nathan because that ticked me off. Because when you go down and you scroll down to the comments, people were saying constantly, like, when is this coming out? When is it coming out? When is it coming out? When is it coming out? And Nathan kept coming back and going, well, soon, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. And everybody was like, oh, it's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing. And then you get to the very bottom and it starts mounting with frustration. Like, people got to the point to where they were like, okay, how long has it been? Like, see, because I think they even cut it off. At some point, people started coming back in here and they were like, so your theme builder, when's it coming back? Because I remember posting on here and saying, it got to the point to where I got so salty that I was literally going on their YouTube channel and I was posting salty comments like, hey, you know what else isn't getting updated? The header and footer builder. And then they did it. But at the same time, we still don't have templates for it. So, once again, salty me. But please don't take and come out with a preview about anything. Don't say, hey, guess what, guys? We're doing optimizations. And then a year later, you do those optimizations because that's just BS. If it takes you a year to come out with something, don't tell me until like 6 months before it comes out, 3 months before it comes out. I don't think you need that much you need that much lead time. A year is just way too long because it frustrated most of us. And for header and footer, for them to come out with it last, not a good view at all. So hopefully I've given you an overview. I know this has been long-winded, but I wanted to dive into it and I wanted to talk about it, talk about everything that was going on, what's good, what's bad, and hopefully just give you just what I think of it. You don't have to listen to me. You could say you're garbage, your comments are wrong, any of that. Go ahead and write it down below if you think that. But if this has helped you or it's made you decide, I'm going to have my link down at the bottom. I do have an affiliate link to them because, believe it or not, I bought Divi. I own Divi. I have a license to it. So it's not like I hate it that much that I'd never use it. I just think I want to see it advance more and get to the point where it's more usable. Right now it's not usable, and I'm hoping that it is not the dumpster fire that is Elementor right now. So say what you must. Divi's been around for a long time. I'm hoping they're going to make a comeback sometime soon and take and put Elementor in its place. Competition only spurs innovation and everything else. And that's one place that I've loved Divi, is they've always come out with new stuff, and they never take and try and copy anybody. They just do their own thing, and I think that that's really cool. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and if you have, please like and subscribe down below, and I will see you guys next time.